25, like verses 27 through 34, where Esau sells his birthright to Jacob. And to me, that's a big deal. And it's like 7 verses. But we get over here to the story about the blessing in chapter 27. Well, that's a whole chapter, and it's like an important chapter. And maybe we don't understand, and maybe we don't equate, and maybe we don't see why it's such a big deal. It didn't seem like that big of a deal. Well, we're going to look at it tonight and see if we can figure it out. So before we do, let's stop and pray. Lord, I pray that tonight you will help us to figure this out. You will lead and guide us. You have told us that your Spirit will teach us and remind us, and that's what we're looking for tonight. We want to hear from you. We want your truth, not man's opinion. We thank you. Amen. Well, you might have seen, if you do any watching of the news or reading of the news, you might have seen that the USA dropped some bombs on Iran recently. You might have seen that. They came in and they dropped some bombs on a nuclear site, and regardless of your political understanding or your interpretation or your opinion of that, the facts remain that the United States went in and obliterated a nuclear site in Iran, and then Iran said, we're going to do something about that. And the following day, Iran launched some missiles over toward a U.S. air base in Qatar. And the interesting thing was the missiles that Iran launched at this air base were highly ineffective. They were short-range, fairly weak missiles. They really weren't designed to blow up an air base. And of course, Iran was well aware of the defense capabilities of this air base. These missiles were not, the missiles didn't have a chance. This was just a waste of missiles. And we see that, and we think, well, geez, that was stupid. I mean, if they're gonna fight back, they need to fight back effectively. They need to actually destroy something, we think, as Americans. And then right after that, Qatar said, that was unacceptable, we're going to get you back. And we said, they didn't even do nothing to Qatar. What's going on? And we sit there and look at this with our kind of Western third grade playground mindset. And I'm telling you what, Iran's doing it all wrong. That's not how you punch back. But see, there's something we don't understand. We come from a culture where the rule of the day is right and wrong. What is right, what is wrong. This is why we don't understand how 40 years ago, when Iran began its nuclear program, they put a call out to the international community saying that they wanted to buy some uranium for enrichment for a nuclear program. And the international community said, oh, okay, well, what are you going to use that uranium for? And they said, well, we're going to build a bomb and we're going to wipe Israel off the face of the earth. And the international community said, whoa, you can't do that. They said, we can't? They said, no, you can't do that. They said, if you want uranium, it better be for a nuclear power plant. Oh, Iran said, then we would like uranium for a nuclear power plant, please. And it was given to them, as well as 1.7 billion American dollars and the release of $16 billion in tied up funds. And the international community kept coming to him saying, why are you enriching this uranium? It only needs to be 3% for a power plant, and they're enriching it 10%, 12%, 17%. Why are you doing this? Oh, Iran said, we're going to build a bomb, and we're going to blow Israel off the map. And they said, you can't do that. You can only have uranium and be enriching uranium for a nuclear power plant. Oh, they said, we're going to build a power plant. And the United Nations said, oh, well, then can we come inspect, see your power plant? Oh, they said, we haven't built it yet. You know, we're buying the gas before we buy the car. It's what they said. And we're sitting here in the West saying that's wrong. That's not right. It's not okay. And we don't understand how Iran continues to do what they're doing. And then when it finally comes to a head and Iran gets bombed, the best they can do is shoot some weak missiles. They know they're going to get shot down. What in the world is going on? We live in a society where there's a right and there's a wrong. And everything is determined based on the definitions of what's right and wrong. But the Middle East doesn't operate that way. The Middle East is what we refer to as an honor-shame society. Either you're honored or you're shamed. Either you carry honor or you carry shame. And you've got to defend your honor with your life. Your honor is more important than your life. Us coming and blowing up their nuclear site was not a matter of right or wrong to them, whether or not we were right or wrong to do that. Because if so, they would have known they were wrong to build it. And that would have settled that issue. No, the issue is we shamed them by blowing that up. We came over and caused shame on the nation of Iran. And so it is required. It's an unwritten law of society that can't be denied. They absolutely must retaliate. They must have the last word. If they're going to maintain any honor at all, they have to do something about it. The shooting of missiles at the U.S. Air Base in Qatar, that was just symbolic. That was just saying, well, you have shamed us and we have honor. That's all that was. Fortunately, there were people in the Pentagon and in the White House who understood that action, were expecting that, and once that was done, they said, okay, that's good, we're done. That's good. I mean, we were expecting, that's good, we're done. And Qatar saying back, this is unacceptable. That's the same thing. That's Qatar saying, you have dishonored us by shooting your toy missiles into our airspace. And we're going to get you. Are they going to get them? I don't know. But Qatar has managed to reclaim its honor in a way. This doesn't make a lot of sense to us. This isn't the way we think and operate. It can be very confusing. It's caused a lot of problems. This lack of understanding of this type of society has caused recent days America tremendous problems in Afghanistan and in Iraq, as well as in Kuwait. It's caused tremendous problems there. And going back over the last 500 or so years of European Western history, it's continued to cause problems in the Mediterranean region and all around North Africa and all around the Middle East. We don't understand the thought process of an honor-shame society, and quite frankly, they don't understand the thought process of a right-wrong society. Why is everybody so upset about us making this bomb? Well, because it's wrong. Well, so? It's our honor at stake. What? We don't care. Total misunderstanding. I feel like that when I read Genesis 27. What's the deal with Genesis 27? It's a blessing. You know what it is to be blessed, right? To be blessed, like when Jesus says, blessed are the poor. To be blessed is to be so filled with good things that it overflows from out of inside of you. You're so packed down with good things that you simply can't contain it all. That's what it means to be blessed. When somebody sneezes and you say, God bless you, you're saying, I want God to pack you so full of good things that it just comes out. I mean, maybe not in a sneeze. That's what it means to bless. Now, this blessing is something that's spoken by a father for a child. And now that sounds really good. Dad's going to fill me so full of good things that they just come out. But understand, he's just using words. He's not actually like filling their bank account or something. He's just saying to them that I, as your dad, want you to be blessed. Well, that's really nice. That's great. Was it worth all this that's about to happen in Genesis 27? Was it worth generational war? Was it worth fracturing a family? Listen, the birthright, this makes sense to me because the birthright is a matter of inheritance. This makes sense to me. The birthright, we talked about this, the oldest son inherits a double portion of the estate. And it's not just the stuff. The oldest son inherits, if you will, the name of the father. The oldest son takes the place of the father in society and in life. That's valuable. The prince becomes the king. That makes sense to me. I mean, imagine a kingdom, very wealthy, powerful kingdom. There's one crown prince. There might be 4 or 5 other little princes running around, but there's one crown prince. He's the one that gets the whole thing. So what do the other ones get? Meghan Markle, apparently, so it's short end of the stick. There's only one that gets the value, the kingdom. Well, now that makes sense. Now listen, if they were fighting over the birthright, that would make sense to me in my American Western mind. But Esau sold the birthright. It didn't matter to him. It meant nothing to him to have that. But the blessing, the blessing was worth killing over. you see. And we just don't quite get how important this is, the blessing. So we're going to have to step out of our Western mindset just a little bit to try to understand what the deal was for these guys. The blessing is really defined as words and statements of affirmation and directions for the future, from an old father to an adult son. The blessing is an asset. It is something valuable that's inherited, you see. The blessing operates as the last will and testament of the father. It is a legal, binding statement that cannot be revoked, and it is the inheritance for the son. Listen, the fact that he got the estate is great, you see. The fact that he got the name of the father, that's nice. He doesn't have the fuel to run that estate. He doesn't have the wisdom to operate as the father without the blessing. That's the most important part in this culture, in this day, the blessing. I want you to think about the first time that we read a blessing in the Bible. I mean, God gives a blessing to Adam and Eve. He blessed them and he told them, be fruitful and multiply. And I understand that. But the first time we see the blessing actually spelled out in the Bible, we see the words of a blessing as if from a father to a son. And it's actually from God to Abraham in Genesis 12. The Lord said to Abraham, go from your land, your relatives, and your father's house to the land that I will show you. I will make you into a great nation. I will bless you. I will I will bless those who bless you. I will curse those who treat you with contempt, and all the peoples on earth will be blessed through you. The purpose of the blessing is to install into the receiver a certain set of truths that are designed not only to last a lifetime, but throughout generations. When God came to Abraham and talked to Abraham, personally, face to face, to deliver this blessing, he installed into Abraham a set of truths that would affect not only Abraham, but every generation of children that Abraham had. God gave Abraham an asset. Now, the asset was a promise. I had a guy that I worked for one time in business, and we worked together on a business that had, when we acquired the business, it had a tremendous amount of accounts receivable. This was a business that operated on about, on a good month, we ran about $5 million in gross receipts a month, which means we were probably running in profit, in net profit, not bottom line profit, somewhere in the $750,000. And we had $300,000 a month in accounts receivable. Now, if you're a business and accounting geek like Wendy and I, you're going, what? But this man that was working with the company, he didn't mind that. He said to me, I view that as an asset. Begin to change the way I saw accounts receivable. He said, I view that as an asset. This is a promise from my customers that they have to pay within a certain period of time. Now, understanding that some 30% of them were going to default, and by the time you were done, you'd probably have lost 10% of it. But still, on paper, he says, this is an asset. I don't hold it in my hand right now. I haven't received it. But I know it's there. I can count on it coming. So it's an asset. That's similar to how Abraham viewed these promises of God. This is an asset. God made these promises. Abraham believed God, and it was credited to him as righteousness. God said, you are righteous because you believe. And remember what the promises were. God gets more detailed on this promise later. And he tells him, I'm going to give you all of this land, and I'm going to give you offspring, and your offspring are going to become a mighty nation, and they're going to inhabit this land, and from that mighty nation will come the promised blessed one of Genesis chapter 3. That's a pretty good asset, Abraham might say. I am the father of not just one nation, but many nations. I and my nation own all of this land, and from my nation, God will do his greatest spiritual work. That will be one of my offspring, one of my descendants. Abraham counted on that. This was his most valuable asset, to the point that in Genesis chapter 14, when he goes to battle with the four kings, the five kings who just were the four kings who defeated the five kings, when he goes to battle against them with his 318 armed men and he wins, and now he essentially holds the title deed to the entire Middle East, and he's offered the chance to be king of essentially a mighty empire. He says no. No. Because listen, if I accept the kingship of this mighty empire, it costs me my one true asset. I lose the nation that God's going to give me. And that promise, that asset, that blessing is worth more than the entire kingdoms of all of the world. Jesus reiterated that when Satan came along and said, listen, look at all of the kingdoms of the world. Satan says, I'll give them to you. Notice that Jesus didn't argue with Satan and say, well, they're not yours, you can't give them. He acknowledged that. Satan owns the kingdoms of the world. I'll give them all to you, Jesus, if you give up your kingdom and worship me. And Jesus said, that's a raunchy trade. Why would I give up the promised blessing that's not even here yet for that? You got to be kidding me. You got to be kidding me. I can't even imagine. There's a particular car guy in Hot Rodder that I really enjoy. His name's David Freiberger. And right now he's giving away a brand new Dodge Charger Scat Pack. It's almost new. He bought it. He bought it personally, and now he's giving it away. I usually don't enter contests, but that one, oh yeah. Oh yeah. Now, imagine that I get a phone call tomorrow. Actually, it's not, I don't know what day, when they do the drawing. I get a phone call and they say, hey, you won. It's coming your way. And I can count on that showing up. And then imagine that Larry here goes out and buys a $300 Toyota Corolla with 500,000 miles on it and one rusty fender. Not because the other fenders are fine. There's just only one fender and it's rusty. And he drives that in and he says to me, hey, Troy, listen, I'll trade you for that brand new Dodge Challenger Scat Pack from David Freiberger. And I say, why would I do that? He says, you don't even have the Challenger yet. You've never even seen it or touched it. You don't even know about that. But listen, I've got the title to my Corolla in hand. I will trade you. Why would I do that? Why would I take that trade? Now, listen, we Americans are very much an instant gratification culture. And we are very much going to be tempted by the Toyota Corolla because it's here now. I can drive it now. The Scat Pack, I don't even know when it's going to show up. That's what we see tonight. It's worth the wait. That's what we're about to see happen tonight. Abraham has the promise of all promises in his hand. He owns it. It's an asset he can count on. It's accounts receivable. It's and God's credit is 100%. It's definitely coming to him. He can count on it. It's so valuable that before he dies, he leaves it to his son Isaac in his last will and testament, of which we do not have a copy. He leaves it to Isaac, and now Isaac owns this asset of this promise. It belongs to Isaac. Isaac is going to need to leave it to one of his sons. And that's the story that we're about to look at tonight. It starts in 27, verse 1. When Isaac was old, and his eyes were so weak that he could not see, he called his older son Esau and said to him, my son. And he answered, here I am. Isaac said, look, I am old and do not know the day of my death. So now take your hunting gear, your quiver and your bow, and go out in the field to hunt some game for me. Then make me a delicious meal that I love and bring it to me to eat, so that I can bless you before I die. This is interesting. So Isaac is old. We know from the way that the scriptures put together and we can count that he's 137 years old here. So that's pretty old. Now, you got to understand with these patriarchs, you can pretty much cut the age in half if you want to match it up to kind of where we are. So he's like maybe 70, all right? But he's gone blind. Here's another interesting thing. His stepbrother Ishmael died at 137 years old. Isaac is 137 years old, and he's gone blind. He probably had cataracts or glaucoma or something. He's gone blind. And he's thinking to himself, my brother died at 137. Clock's ticking. And he still has this asset, this most important asset that he has not willed to one of his sons. And so he calls Esau, and he said, I am ready to hand this off to you. A couple of interesting things. What do we know about where the blessing is supposed to go? Oh, well, let's flip back a chapter or two and we'll find out. Genesis 25, starting verse 21. Isaac prayed to the Lord on behalf of his wife because she was childless. The Lord was receptive to his prayer, and his wife Rebekah conceived. But the children inside her struggled with each other, and she said, why is this happening to me? So she went to inquire of Yahweh. And the Lord said to her, 2 nations are in your womb. 2 people will come from you and be separated. One will be stronger than the other, and the older will serve the younger. This little prophecy explains very clearly to Isaac and Rebekah that the younger of the twins that she's carrying will be the inheritor. This will be the one to get the birthright, and this will be the one to get the blessing. Believe me, there was no doubt. We're actually going to see from the words of Isaac tonight, assuming we get there, that there was no doubt in his mind that this is how it was going to happen. And it did happen. This is God's plan. This is what God was planning to do. We know this is what God was planning to do. He tells us again and again and again, both before the boys were born and after the boys were born. And yes, Esau was only a minute older than Jacob, but that makes him the firstborn, and that makes Jacob the younger, and that's the one that God said he was going to bless, he was going to choose, he was going to inherit. Now, if God said he's going to do that, what in the world is Isaac doing? Isaac knows this. We're going to read later, end of chapter. Isaac knew it all along. What is he doing? Could it be that Isaac is trying to maybe circumvent the work of God just a little bit? Could it be that maybe he's trying to get the upper hand just a little bit? I mean, he knows that Esau has sold the birthright. But he loves Esau. Esau's a man's man. Esau, Harry is his name. He's the man's man. He's the tough man. He's the guy who don't take no for an answer. He's the guy who lives off grid and catches his own food and all that stuff that the people up in Willow do. He's a man's man. And Isaac likes that about him because Isaac is not a man's man. Isaac's a little bit of a pushover, let's just be honest. And he thinks that's who should have the blessing. Somebody strong and powerful, not Jacob. Jacob's too much like Isaac. We need somebody strong and powerful to have the blessing. I want to give it to him. He thinks he's in control of it. He thinks it's his. But it's God's promise. God made the promise, and God's going to give it to who God's going to give it to. And even the best efforts of Esau and the best efforts of Jacob, or I should say of Isaac, aren't going to change what God's going to do. We're going to see that again and again and again and again in the life of Jacob. Jacob just keeps screwing. Listen, Jacob is one of my least favorite characters in the Old Testament. Jacob is just a jerk. I was reading again in chapter 28 today, and this guy just boggles my mind how much of a numbskull he is. But this is what God had decided to do, and nobody's going to change that. Nobody's going to change that. But here Isaac's going to try to change it. He says, Esau, go out in the field, catch me some game, make me the food I like to eat, so that I can bless you before I die. Interesting. He says, I'm old and I do not know the day of my death. He's 137 years old. He's about to live another 43 years. I guess he doesn't know the day of his death. It's going to be a minute. He had some time, but he decided in his own mind he's in a rush and he's got to get this over with. Oh man, every mistake I make is because I got in a rush. Interesting that he doesn't stop and worship. He doesn't stop and spend some time with God. It's almost like he's trying to avoid that right now. He's got a blessing he's got to pass on. Go and make me some food. I wonder why. Esau, go and make me some food. Couldn't he have just done it right then? I wonder if he's reminding Esau about Esau's strength. He's reminding Esau about what he likes about Esau. We're going to see when we actually read the blessing that he mentions what he loves about Esau. He wants Esau to know it's your strength, it's your man's manness, Esau, that has won you the blessing. You've earned it through your being a man's man. Interesting. Well, verse 5. Now Rebekah was listening to what Isaac said to his son Esau. So while Esau went to the field to hunt some game to bring in, Rebekah said to her son, remember, Rebekah loves Jacob. Rebekah knows the prophecy. Rebekah knows Jacob's going to be in charge. Now hold on a second. That's a promise from God, right? That Jacob's going to be the inheritor. I mean, you could take that to the bank, right? Ain't nobody who could mess with the promise of God, right? Iran just tried. Didn't work. Nobody can mess with the promise of God. Shouldn't she just say, Jacob, just want you to know this is going down, but it's going to be okay. God's in charge. He's got this. It'll be fine. Listen, don't you worry, Jacob. Yeah, I heard what your dad said. I know Esau's out hunting now. He's probably going to catch something, bring it in. But don't you worry. God's got a plan. Everything's going to be okay. That's what I would have liked her to say. That is not what she said. Instead, she said, Rebekah to her son, verse 6, listen, I heard your father talking with your brother Esau. He said, bring me game and make me a delicious meal for me to eat, so that I can bless you in the Lord's presence before I die. Now, my son, listen to me and do what I tell you. Go to the flock and bring me 2 choice young goats, and I will make them into a delicious meal for your father, the kind he loves. Then take it to your father to eat, so that he may bless you before he dies. I would like verse 8 to say, now listen, my son, I'm going to go talk to your father and remind him about what God said. Nope. Now listen, my son, let's be deceptive, she says. I mean, God's already made you a promise. But we're going to make sure that it really happens. Came across this quote today when I was reading about Jacob, and it just fits him perfectly. We'll come back and back and back to it. The quote is this: he remains determined to seize God's gift by force at the expense of others. He remains determined to seize God's gifts by force at the expense of others. It's interesting to me that Jacob really wants this blessing and that he knows that God has promised it to him. But he doesn't just rest in that. He has to go try to get it himself. It's just interesting to me. Well, Jacob answered Rebekah, his mother, look, Mom, that's not how we do things around here. We trust in God around here, Mom. Let's go talk to Dad. Look, I've got to go out in the field and pray for a while, Mom, because this isn't how it's supposed to go down. Nope. Look, my brother Esau is a hairy man, but I am a man with smooth skin. Suppose my father touches me. Then I will be revealed to him as a deceiver and bring a curse rather than blessing on myself. It actually literally says in verse 12 there, he says, where's the actual words? I shall seem to be a deceiver. He says, verse 12, suppose my father touches me, I shall seem to him to be a deceiver. He's going to think I'm a deceiver. Is he a deceiver? Yeah. He'll be revealed for what he actually is, but he doesn't want to be revealed for what he actually is. I'll look like a deceiver to him. Well, that's what you are, Jacob. But he doesn't want to admit it. He wants to hide it. I don't want Dad to know what's really going on inside of me. How are we going to stop him from finding out what I really am? Verse 13, Mother said to him, your curse be on me, my son. Just obey me and go and get them for me. So, verse 14, he went and got the goats and brought them to his mother, and his mother made the delicious food his father loved. Then Rebekah took the best clothes of her older son Esau, which were in the house, and had her younger son Jacob wear them. They were a little big, they didn't fit well, and they stunk, quite frankly. She put the skins of the young goat on his hands and the smooth part of his neck. How hairy was this guy? Have you ever touched a goat? Holy cow! That's just incredible to me. She put the skins on. She handed him the delicious food she had made. And she handed delicious food she's made and bread and sent them, and she gave them to her son Jacob. Think about how long this must have taken. I mean, there's at least a day's work here, maybe a couple of days' work here to get this whole thing done. And Jacob is very passive, just like he's always been, and just doing what mommy tells him. Esau's been out hunting this whole time. Verse 18, when he came to his father, he said, "My father?" And Isaac answered, "Here I am. Who are you, my son?" That's interesting. Who's going to call him father? Jacob or Esau? He probably knows which one. He's not expecting Jacob. He's not expecting a visit from Jacob. His saying, "Who are you?" is not saying, "I don't know who you are." His saying, "Who are you?" is like we would say, "What are you doing here? Why have you come?" His answer is, Jacob replied to his father, verse 19, "I am Esau, your firstborn." Outright lie. "I have done as you told me. Please sit up and eat some of my game so that you may bless me." Isaac is already suspicious, verse 20. But Isaac said to his son, "How did you ever find it so quickly, my son?" Listen to this. He replied, "Because Yahweh your God made it happen for me." Wow. Listen, if you're going to lie, that's one thing. But if you're going to invoke the name of God for your lie, that's a whole other. You know in the Ten Commandments, where it said, "Name of the Lord your God in vain." Do you know that does not mean saying OMG? That does not mean hitting your thumb with a hammer and saying the wrong thing. That's not what that means. No, I mean, that's not particularly good anyway. I mean, Jesus Christ is not a swear word. That's not okay anyway. But that's not what God's talking about. What he's talking about is this right here. Don't do this. You have been given the name of Christ. You are a Christian, a Christian. It literally means little copy of Christ. You're walking around bearing that name. Don't use it incorrectly. I have an account at Sherwin-Williams, the paint store. I can walk into Sherwin-Williams and give them my name, and they will mix me up paint and hand it to me, gallons of the stuff. They even bring it out to my truck, help me load it up. And I can take it home and pay nothing. Well, until later. But they're at the store. I pay nothing. Now, I could say to Ty, "Ty, I want you to go down to Sherwin-Williams. I want you to tell them, I am a little copy of Troy Johnson, and I would like some paint." And they will give you paint. I could say, "Ty, pick up 5 gallons of this color and 10 gallons of that color. Here's the key to my truck." He goes down there. He says, "I am a little copy of Troy Johnson." They give him the paint. But I say, "Ty, whatever you do, thou shalt not use my name in vain." What I don't want Ty to do is go down to Sherwin-Williams and walk around the store making a mess of things, kicking things, yelling at people. "This is a horrible store. What's the matter with you?" And they say, "Who are you?" And he says, "I am Troy Johnson." He has really abused my name. I mean, he's really thrown mud on my name. I go in there next time and I say, "I'm Troy Johnson." They're going to kick me out of the store. And it's not my fault, it's his fault. Also, what I don't want him to do, I told him, you get 5 gallons of this kind, 10 gallons of that kind. That doesn't mean he can get anything he wants. "Yeah, I want one of those $1,400 sprayers. And can I get just a pallet of that paint? I don't even care what color. Yeah, we'll pay the bill later." No. That's taking my name in vain. That's abusing my name, you see. We have been given the name Christian, Christian. It comes with the promise of a kingdom. It comes with the promise of tremendous blessing from God. It also comes with some requirements about how we are to treat one another, what we are to do in difficult situations. It comes with requirements about forgiveness. Man, Jesus was so adamant about forgiveness. I mean, he just made it so clear. And if I walk around and say, "I am Christian, I am little copy of Christ," Well, then I better handle it the way that he would handle it. I have his power of attorney. I have his name. I better handle it correctly. I told you before that my dad, when I was a kid and we had the yellow pages, some of you remember the yellow pages, that when I would look up a business for something, we had to fix something on a car or something, and I would see the name of a business with the fish by the name, I would say, oh, Daddy, these ones are Christians, let's go there. He said, no, that is the wrong one to go to. I said, really? He said, oh yeah. He said, you never go to a business that advertises that it's Christian. And I said, why not? And he said, because they're just using that to hide their ill dealings. We are a Christian business and you can't trust them. He said, now that was his opinion. I don't know if that was the case all the time. Obviously, he'd had some negative dealings. But a legend like that doesn't develop out of nothing. It's people hiding behind the name of Christ. Oh, the Lord your God, Dad, the Lord your God helped me. No, you're being a liar and a cheat. That has nothing to do with God. As a matter of fact, that's violating a couple other commandments the way I see it about, lying and stealing and coveting and stuff like that. I don't think that the Lord as God was very happy with him at that moment. Verse 21, Isaac said to Jacob, please come closer so I can touch you, my son. Are you really my son Esau, name that means hairy, or not? So, okay, now hold on. Imagine that you're Jacob. Just take a second. Mommy has told you what to do. By the way, he's 77 years old here. Jacob and Esau are 77 years old. Even if you cut that in half to try to age it out with the other patriarchs, that makes him almost 40. Like 35 to 40. Mommy has told him what to do. He doesn't like the idea. He's already told her, I don't think this is a good idea. But Mommy has said you're going to do it, so he's going to do it. Mommy dresses him up in his big brother's clothes and put goat skins on him and says, go talk to your blind dad and tell him your name is Esau. Can you imagine how nervous he must have been walking in there? Who are you, my son? I am Jacob. I am Esau. Can you imagine how nervous? And then dad doesn't believe you. Come here, my son, so I can touch you. Here it goes. Here it goes. Now, understand that there were certain elements to the blessing. And one of those elements is a meaningful physical touch. That's one of the elements of the blessing. Dad's going to literally touch you. He's going to put his hands on you in a meaningful way. Came across a statistic a few years ago that teenage girls who get pregnant, this was 20-ish years ago, 2/3 of them, just over 65% of them, said that they never received meaningful physical touch from their father. That contributed to their desire for meaningful physical touch. But that's interesting. I find it very interesting. Part of the ancient Near East blessing was a meaningful physical touch from your father. That's really interesting. Also, just so you know the other elements, meaningful physical touch, a clearly spoken indication of value. In other words, dad is going to tell the son what he is worth. And then a word of destination. That is, here's where you're going with your life. Here's where I see you going with your life. And then a promise of continued commitment. That is, I am here for you until you get there. For as long as my life, for as long as I live, I'm going to see this value in you. I'm going to see where you're going. I'm going to support you in that. And I'm going to keep you going until you get there. I think this is one of the reasons that some of the Asian cultures, like say the Indian culture, produces so many doctors and mathematicians and stuff like that. It's not that they're so much smarter than people in Western cultures. It's that when they're little, their dad watches them to see what kind of a person they are, and then he tells them over and over, my son, I see in you the capability to be an excellent physical doctor. And he encourages him in that and encourages him in that and encourages him in that. And as he grows up, he's like, well, yeah, I'm going to be a doctor. 7 years old, he's like, yeah, I'm going to be a surgeon. Be the best brain surgeon ever there was. And he goes on and does it because dad says, your mom and I are going to walk with you until you achieve this goal. And that's part of this process. So he says, come to me. Let me put my hands on you. Let me touch you in a meaningful way. And then I'm going to know if you're really Esau. So, So verse 27, Jacob came close to his father Isaac. When he touched him, he said, the voice is the voice of Jacob, but the hands are the hands of Esau. Did you ever seen that movie Teen Wolf, where Michael J. Fox grows all the hair and looks like a werewolf? It's a really stupid, silly movie from my teenagehood. And he gets all this hair in his hands. This is what I'm picturing here. How hairy is this guy Esau? He's got goat skins on his hands, like with all the hair of a goat. And his dad touches his hands and he goes, oh, look, that's the hand of Esau? You know, normally when people go blind, they're like their sense of touch develops even better. What is up with Esau? Crazy. He's got some kind of genetic disorder, is all I can figure. Anyway, so the voice is the voice of Jacob, but the hands are the hands of Esau. He did not recognize him because his hands were hairy like those of his brother Esau. So he blessed him. That's not saying he gave him the blessing. He's just saying, basically, I'm glad you're here, son, at this point. And he asked him, are you really my son Esau? And Jacob replied, I am. Now, I thought about this for a while. Jacob knows the prophecy as well. Jacob knows what God has said as well. And Jacob wants what God is giving. Jacob wants the birthright. Jacob wants the blessing. He desires this in his life. He wants to be the inheritor. He sees the value of both of these things. Esau does not. Esau is very much a instant gratification kind of guy. We're not going to get there tonight. Next week we're going to talk about there at the end of chapter 26. We're going to come back to that to understand the end of chapter 27, where it says when Esau was 40 years old, he took as his wives, and then they tell us who his wives were. That word he took as his wives. It literally means he took them. It doesn't mean his mom and dad made arrangements like they're supposed to, his dad drew up a contract and all this kind of thing. It literally means he took them. It means he saw them, he wanted them, and he took them. Whether that was at a time of war, whether that was through a kidnapping type of situation where he saw a girl, thought she was hot, raided her home or her community to take her. He took them. See, want, get. That's Esau. Selling the birthright. What good is a birthright to me? What good is that? That's a promise. And that promise comes with all these obligations. Why would I want obligations? That stops me from my PlayStation. He wanted to do what he wanted to do. And he wanted it now. Jacob was playing the long game. He greatly desired the birthright and the blessing. He wanted to be the inheritor of this. He could see its tremendous value. Right here, Jacob has yet one more chance to tell that to his dad. I think right here, as dad's touching my goat-skinned hands, asking me again, are you really Esau? That's where I would have cracked. That's where I would have fallen on my knees and said, Dad, I got to be honest with you. I mean, honestly, the relationship between mom and dad is pretty much tanked over anyway. I mean, she's just deceiving and conniving and stealing from her husband at this point. So he's not going to make that any worse. This is the point where I would have said, Dad, listen, I've got to be honest. And I know mom's listening, and it's going to break everybody's heart, but I just don't know what else to do. This is the situation, Dad. You know, you and I both know the prophecy. You and I both know I'm supposed to be the inheritor. Mom heard you were going to give the blessing to Esau, and we cooked up this scheme, but I can't go through with it. Dad, I don't know what you're going to do. I don't care what you're going to do. But at this point, you know where everybody in this story stands. You know where mom stands. You know where Esau stands. You know where I stand. The rest is up to you, Dad. I have a feeling that if Jacob would have done that right then, the course of his life would have been dramatically different. I have a feeling if he would have done that right then, Esau would have blessed his socks off. I think Esau would have said, you're right, son. I too have made an error here. You are supposed to be the inheritor. I think he would have blessed him. I think we would have seen a totally different Jacob. I think we would have seen a Jacob that instead, Jacob's going to be a jerk, all right? Spoiler alert. We're going to see, I think we would have seen a Jacob that was totally different, that was deeply blessed by God and cared for by others, and it would have been fantastic. I see in the text right here, he's got this chance. And instead of his voice cracking and saying, okay, Dad, I I got to come clean. His voice cracks and he says, I am, in fact, Esau. I don't know if I've mentioned I don't particularly like Jacob. And this is part of why. This guy has so many chances. And he just blows every one of them. Jacob's motto in life is cover your own butt. And that's what he's doing. Question coming in. What's that? That is correct. And actually, we're going to talk about that. So the question was, had to do with the fact that Jacob called God to Isaac, Yahweh, your God. And that's a good catch, and that's it. That's part of what we're going to be talking about on Sunday. It's verse 20. Isaac said to his son, how did you ever find it so quickly, my son? And he replied, because the Lord, your God, made it happen for me. This is not Jacob's God. We're going to talk about that concept on Sunday. We're going to draw out of there, and you can actually go over into verse 28, and you're going to see what a big jerk Jacob is right here, where God makes him an amazing promise. And Jacob comes back and says, well, that's a really good promise, God. So let's make a deal here. If you do these things for me, then I'll let you be my God. Yeah, that's the exact right response. What's the matter with this guy? Yep. But he did see the value in the birthright and the blessing, and that's something that Esau did not see. So Esau asks, are you really, by the way, pause, parentheses. Please ask questions. Write them down. Email them in. Hand them to me. Ask me here. The reason is because this Sunday morning, during the Sunday school hour in this room, from 10:15 to 10:45, we're going to be talking about this stuff. Having a discussion, asking questions, answering questions. If you don't give me questions, I'm going to tell dad jokes the entire half hour. So, yeah, seriously, this is important. I mean, this is like nuclear uranium enrichment important. So, yes, so please come prepared with questions. And if you're watching online or at home, please send them in. You can comment on the YouTube video. And we'll see that, or you can email in. You can just take the link to jlcn.org, our website, and look at the Contact Us page and send that stuff in. You can even go to our Facebook page and do that. However you'd like to send in questions or comments, and we will be discussing those during that time. Okay, back to verse 24. He asks, are you really my son Esau? And he replied, I am. Verse 25. Then he said, bring it closer to me. Let me eat some of my son's game. Did you catch that? He's still not sure. Let me eat some of my son's game so that I can bless you. Jacob brought it closer, and he ate, and he brought him wine, and he drank. And then his father Isaac said to him, please come closer and kiss me, my son. So he came closer and kissed him. When Isaac smelled his clothes, he blessed him and said, whose clothes did he smell? Who does he think he's blessing? Esau. Now, in my not very good legal mind, I'm going to say whether Esau is there to receive it, it's going to Esau, right? I mean, it makes sense to me. What if I give Lindsay a gift for Addie? I might even think that she's Addie at the time. Maybe I'm blind, and I don't know, maybe one of you's Harry. And I hand you a gift, and I say, oh, this is for Addie. And she opens it, it's still for Addie, right? Addie's still going to get it. That's not the way this works. The spoken blessing is irrevocable. It goes to the person to whom it's delivered, whether it's being delivered to the right person or not. So he goes and he blesses him. And he says, the smell of my son is like the smell of a field that the Lord has blessed. First of all, in other words, he stinks. Esau should maybe get some Irish Spring and take a shower. But secondly, do you remember the first time we met Isaac as an adult? It was when he was waiting for Rebekah. What was Isaac doing? He was out in the field praying. He remembered the smell of being out in the field with God. One of the things he really loves about Esau is that Esau reminds him of Isaac being with God. Esau ain't that kind of guy. But it's one of the things that he loves about him. It reminds him of that. Reminds him of being in a field that the Lord has blessed. And that's the idea of abundance, of blessing of yourself. I mean, a field the Lord has blessed is going to produce a great harvest that will keep your family alive for a great time. He sees these things in Esau. And he says to him, "May God give to you from the dew of the sky and from the riches of the land an abundance of grain and new wine. May peoples serve you and nations bow in worship to you. Be master over your relatives. May your mother's sons bow in worship to you. Those who curse you will be cursed, and those who bless you will be blessed." We see the pieces of the blessing in this. Physical touch, we got it. The spoken message of value, verse 27, "You remind me of abundance from the Lord," Esau. We see the destination, verse 28. "May God give you from the dew of the sky and from the richness of the land an abundance of grain and new wine." The destination that I see for you, Esau, is that you will be wealthy off of the things of the land. And we see the commitment. "May peoples serve you and nations bow in worship to you. Be master over your relatives." In other words, we're all going to hold you up. I like this one a lot. "May your mother's sons bow and worship to you." Who's he talking about? Just one, Jacob. "May Jacob bow and worship to you," he says to Jacob, but it kind of backfires. And then he passes on the blessing that he got from Abraham. Here, Jacob is about to inherit from Isaac the big one. And it's referred to this way: "Those who curse you will be cursed, and those who bless you will be blessed." Remember, in the Old Testament, whenever you quote a portion of a phrase or of a prophecy, you're handing the person that whole thing. So later, when we see people quote out of the Psalms, or even when Christ quotes out of the Psalms, he's not just using that one line. Psalm 19 has this one verse. He's telling the person all of Psalm 119, I'm saying to you right now with this encapsulated part. So what Isaac is doing is saying, I'm giving you this little part of the blessing, but in that you're receiving the whole blessing. So that's what he's getting. He's getting the Abrahamic covenant, and from his dad, he's getting great value. He's getting a destination of wealth, of power, and of the commitment of his family. As soon as Isaac had finished blessing Jacob, and Jacob had left the presence of his father Isaac, his brother Esau arrived from his hunting. He also had made some delicious food and brought it to his father. Did Esau make the food? No. Esau was responsible for making the food. But did Esau make the food? His wives made it. That's going to play in later. Anyway, Esau made some, because Esau doesn't cook, he's a man's man. Esau made some delicious food and brought it to his father, and he said to his father, "Let my father get up and eat some of his son's game so that you may bless me." Very similar. But his father Isaac said to him, "Who are you?" Now he genuinely wonders, who are you? Because I was just talking to Esau. He answered, "I am Esau, your firstborn son." Isaac began to tremble uncontrollably. Verse 33, "Who was it then," he said, "who hunted game and brought it to me? I ate it all before you came in. I blessed him. Indeed, he will be blessed." He knows who it was, all right? He's not asking for the sake of Esau starting an investigation. What he's saying to Esau was, essentially, your brother came in posing as you, and he received the blessing. And then he says this phrase, "Indeed, he will be blessed." One of the things that lets me know is that Isaac was well aware of the promise of God. He was well aware of the prophecy that said that Jacob would be the one to be blessed. He tried to get one over on God. God got one over on him. It's always that way. Very famous quote during the design and construction of the Titanic. "God himself can't sink this ship." Guess what? Telling you what, big time, yep. He said, "Hold my gloves." Wendy and I like to watch the old TV show, the British TV show Top Gear. Love that show. We watched a clip the other day where Jeremy Clarkson is racing the sun. He starts on one end of the British Isle as the sun's going down, and it's the exact moment when the weather people said the sun was down. He starts driving across the island, and he's going to get to the other end of the island before the sun comes up. And he said he was racing God, and he was ahead. He shouldn't have said that. He probably would have won. But he got stuck behind a slow-moving truck, and he got in a construction zone, and he got in a heretofore unknown police control zone, and he ended up a minute late. Isaac tried to pass one over on God, and it didn't work. Indeed, Jacob will be blessed. Now, listen to Esau's response. Remember, Esau is 77 years old. Even if we want to cut that in half for the age of the patriarchs, he's like between 35 and 40. When Esau heard his father's words, he cried out with a loud and bitter cry and said to his father, "Bless me too, my father." These are the words you use when a toddler throws a temper fit. In Hebrew, he pitched a fit. But he replied, "Your brother came deceitfully and took your blessing." Was it ever his blessing to begin with? No, it was supposed to be Jacob's blessing. But Isaac tried to do it, and he said, "He took your blessing." And then I love this, verse 36. So he said, "Isn't he rightly named Jacob, Yaakov, heel snatcher?" Initially intended to mean one who pushes the other forward, but eventually coming to mean one who pulls the other back to take his spot. Isn't he rightly named Yaakov? For he has cheated me twice now. He took my birthright, and look, now he has taken my blessing. Did he cheat him twice? No. He cheated him once. Oh, he cheated him good. Once. He took once. He stole once. Same word that Esau took this woman to be his wife. Snatched it away. Kidnapped it. Yep, he did that once, but not twice. Esau freely gave the birthright. Esau said, "A bowl of red lentil stew is more valuable to me than my rightful physical inheritance." And I think if it really would have come down to it, it was also more valuable to him than the spiritual inheritance. You know why I think that Esau wanted the blessing? Do you really think Esau wanted to be the producer of the great nation and that one day all the nations of earth would be blessed through him? I don't think he cared a piddly about that. Oh, let's find out why he really wanted it. Then he asked, "Haven't you saved a blessing for me?" But Isaac answered Esau, "Look, I have made him," listen to this, "master over you, have given him all his relatives as servants, and have sustained him with grain and new wine." What about the Abrahamic blessing? Isaac never says to Esau, "I also let him inherit the Abrahamic blessing," that he would become a great nation, that all the nations of earth would be blessed, that the Genesis 3 Redeemer would come through his line, and that his nation would one day inhabit this land. He doesn't tell him about that. I don't think Esau cared a piddly about that. What he wanted was the fringe benefits. He wanted the grain and new wine. He wanted to be in charge and be wealthy. He wanted the instant gratification. He didn't want the long-term vision and blessing of God. That's why God didn't give it to him. That's why God planned to give it to Jacob all along. Man, there is such a huge concept in here. We got a board meeting tomorrow night. We'll talk about it a little bit. There's such a huge concept in here. God was planning to do something fantastic to, for, and through Jacob anyway. And Jacob had to go fight for it and scheme for it and deceive for it and not believe in it and gain it for himself. And I see churches do that. God wants to do something fantastic anyway. He said, Jesus said, "I will build my church." He didn't say, "You go build my church." He said, "I will build my church. You will be my witnesses. I will build my church." Why do we work so hard to have all of these great programs to get people to come sit in our chairs? I will build my church. Shouldn't we just take his promises and roll with it? Say, I don't know how it's going to work. I can't see how it's coming. It looks like I'm on the Jacob end of the Esau stick at the moment, but I'm just going to trust in you. Like Jacob should have done. Well, I gave him all of this stuff. We're almost out of time. I gave him all of this stuff. Verse 38, Esau said to his father, do you have only one blessing, my father? Bless me too, my father. And Esau wept loudly, 77 years old. That's interesting. Do you have only one blessing? Apparently so. Apparently, Isaac felt like every good thing he had to give, every good thing he could give generationally, he had given away. He withheld none of it. He had 2 sons. One of them has the birthright. Don't you think he would have split it up? A good dad, don't you think he would have said, well, actually, I'll give you Jacob's blessing now. I'm going to bless Jacob with whatever, something really great. Tickets to SeaWorld, I don't know. Wouldn't you think there'd be something? Nope, he gave it all to him, because here is how Isaac answered. Look, your dwelling place will be away from the richness of the land, away from the dew of the sky above. You will live by your sword, and you will serve your brother. But when you rebel, you will break his yoke from your neck. That's what he got. That's his whole blessing. Let me tell you what happened to Esau real quick like. He became a mighty nation, a nation known as Edom, which is a term that means red because it goes along with being hairy, red guy. Edom. The Edomites became a pretty powerful nation. They lived to kind of the southeast, more east, but like east-southeast of the Israelites. They became a mighty nation before Israel was even in the land. And they inhabited a place that is away from the dew of heaven and away from the richness of the land. They lived in what is now Jordan, that area, as well as some other areas, but Jordan kind of primarily. You've heard of Petra, the Nebian city of Petra? They were the first inhabitants of the city of the rock. Whether or not they were the ones who carved the temples out of the rock, or it was the Nebians, we can't be 100% sure. It was probably the Nebians, but they were the first ones to inhabit that area. They did live by their sword. Because of where they were, they could control trade routes. And so they extracted heavy taxes on the traders of the land. And they got pretty wealthy. They actually had some great deposits of copper that they traded in. They got pretty wealthy, the Edomites. But they were always second place to the people who occupied the land of Israel. They always were. Now, when Babylon came through and conquered that whole land, the Edomites kind of got stepped on too. Really hard to conquer people who lives in clefts of the rock. But they kind of just, their trade routes, I mean, you couldn't just take the people out, so their trade routes got disrupted, and it just kind of became a mess. And they ended up, long story short, moving out of that area and into southern Judea, like where the Gaza Strip is today, where the Philistines had been occupying. They came into that area kind of post-Babylonian conquest. And then you've heard of the Hasmonean dynasty in Israel. When the Hasmoneans came to power, they told the Edomites at that time, you can stay here, but you have to kind of become part of us. Convert to our Judaistic religion and you can stay here. And they kind of did, at least on paper, and they became what's known as the Idumeans. That's what the Romans called them, the Idumeans. Now that's really important because a particular Idumean by the name of Antipater, his last name was Herod, became the first Herod. His son was Herod the Great. And that's why they were so hot to trot about being in power over Israel. Multiple times in history, the Edomites tried to conquer the Israelites. Multiple times. There is only one book of the Bible, Old Testament book, prophetic book, that is dedicated to nothing other than speaking negatively against one single people group. And it's the book of Obadiah, and it's speaking negatively against the Edomites. And it's telling us why. The Edomites did everything they could to sabotage the Israelite people. And when the Israelite people finally got conquered by the Babylonians, the Edomites stood back and laughed. Said, you can't get us, but you got them. Ha ha, it's about time. To the point, much later than Obadiah, that when the Romans came in 70 AD to conquer Jerusalem, 68, when they came to put up the siege works, one of the ways that the Romans were successful at conquering Jerusalem was that 20,000 Idumean soldiers knocked on the door there of the gate at Jerusalem and said, "Let us in. We will help. You are our brothers. We will help defend the city." And the Israelites let them in. And actually, they had already made a deal with the Romans, and as soon as they got in there, they slaughtered the defenses of the Jews. That's what happened with the Edomites. And they are gone today. I mean, there may be some descendants, but they can't actually point to their heritage and say, "I'm an Edomite." Anyway, that's what ended up happening. Just exactly what Isaac said would happen with Esau. Now, next week, we're going to come back and talk about what happened as a result. The fallout in the family. It's a sad story. I told you on Sunday we're about to study some of the most dysfunctional people that ever I've seen, a family that's dysfunctional beyond repair. And we're going to see how all of that goes next week. So I'm going to leave you on an unhappy cliffhanger. Come back next week. And again, please send in questions, comments, concerns that we can talk about on Sunday morning. Let's pray. Thank you, Lord, that we can trust you, that we can wait on you, that what you have said will be done. We thank you. Amen.